Hey, welcome everybody. I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Shayna Jacques. I'm the Outreach Manager for PSS Circle of Care. And also I want to thank the Brooklyn Borough President for doing this in partnership to doing this presentation with us. Today, we're going to talk about caregivers. The information that you're going to get is from Meg, Adam, and Casey Prudential. They are the care consultant at PSS Circle of Care. If you have any question, you can add it on the chat. We'll be answering them in a few minutes. Hi, Tennessee. Denise, if I pronounce your name correctly. Again, I want to thank everybody. Without further ado, Casey will start.
So we're going to be talking today about the impact of caregiving, practical solutions, and strategies. What is a caregiver? A caregiver is someone, usually a family member, who regularly provides direct care to an older adult who is disabled, ill, frail, or diagnosed with dementia. However, a caregiver can be a friend, a neighbor, or even a family member providing care long distance.
Are you now or have you ever been a caregiver? So, this is a tricky question sometimes because a lot of the caregivers that I speak with don't identify with the term. And they think that I'm talking about a paid professional when I say caregiver. So, this is a natural response. So, for example, let's say it's a spouse, for better or for worse, or you're caring for a parent or a grandparent. You're going to feel inclined to care for especially your mom or your dad, if they develop something such as dementia or chronic illness. So, with that being said, many people have actually been caregivers and probably just didn't identify as that at the time. So, not only are more people identifying themselves as caregivers, other factors are contributing to the growth in numbers of caregivers. The number of older adults is increasing dramatically. 10,000 people in the United States turn 65 every single day. In about 10 years, 1 in 5 US residents will be 65 or older, and people are living longer. The average age expectancy is 79, when in 1900 it was 47. In addition to this information, there are other forms of caregiving. So when I say caregiver, we're probably thinking about the primary caregiver who's with the care receiver on a regular basis. But there's also long distance caregiving, and long distance caregiving can be something like, well, I live in New York and my mom lives in Florida, but I have a camera system installed so that I can check in on her regularly, or I call her every day to make sure she takes her medication on time. So we have long distance caregivers. We have caregivers who are caring for individuals who live in facilities, such as assisted living facilities and nursing homes. When you have a loved one in a nursing home, you caregive by advocating for them. So who's their social worker? What's the weekly or monthly schedule? Who's the case manager? What were the changes when COVID happened? So there's ways to caregive even when your loved one is in a facility. And then we also have secondary caregivers. So a secondary caregiver would be like, let's say me and my sister live in New York City, and we're both caring for our mom, but I have 2 kids, and my sister is a stay-at-home mom. So she's going to take on the bulk of the responsibility. But on the weekends, I do, drop in and spend time with my mom. So I'm also a caregiver, even though I'm not the one who's with her day in and day out. So because people are living longer, their risk for becoming ill and developing a physical or cognitive impairment increases. So, with more than 20% of the population being older than 65, caregivers are essential. Whether it's a family member, it could be a spouse, a friend, a paid professional, or a neighbor. This is why the healthcare industry is introducing new programs such as CDPAP, where the care receiver is able to pick who they want to care for them. Because people are living longer, their risk of being diagnosed with dementia increases. So age is the greatest risk factor for dementia. That's why it's so important for us to encourage our loved ones who are 65 and older to routinely see their primary care physician. I've heard a number of times when I'm doing assessments. So, when was the last time your uncle has been to the doctor? And it could be years, or the loved one just doesn't know when was the last time the uncle visited a primary care physician. So that's something that we want to stay on top of. Also, I do recommend getting a geriatric doctor as the primary care physician, and also just being familiar with the signs and symptoms of dementia. Because in New York City alone, there is an estimated 250,000 people diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And that's just Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's falls under the umbrella of dementia. So that could, we don't have the statistics for vascular dementia, Lewy body, Parkinson's with some memory loss, and other unspecified dementias. So the number of caregivers is on the rise. The growing number of older adults, plus people living longer, plus increasing risk of dementia and declining health equals more caregivers.
So, the caregiver stats. Caregiving impacts people of all ages, races, and incomes. Nearly 40 million Americans are providing unpaid care to an older adult who is disabled or in need of assistance. And an estimated 400,000 New Yorkers are caring for someone with dementia. Caregivers who are considered caregivers who are considered the sandwich generation. Many of you may be asking, what is the sandwich generation? And a sandwich generation is a caregiver who is not only caring for an aging parent or loved one, but also one who is caring for children under the age of 18. Many of these caregivers in the sandwich generation tend to become very overwhelmed and stressed out, and many begin to forget to practice self care and catering to their own health and needs. Caregiving is not a short term obligation. Caregiving is a long term obligation because, unfortunately, with a disease like dementia, with time, the disease does progress and becomes worse over time. 70% of caregivers can be expected to be caregivers for more than 10 years, and the median number of years is 5 years. I have heard many stories where caregivers started off visiting mom once or twice a week, just helping her with necessities around the house. However, with time it does become I have to visit mom every day because I'm scared or worried that something can happen to her while she's alone. You don't trust her cooking. She may forget to turn off the stove, and ultimately she can start a fire, or mom just can't get out of bed anymore and she has become very dependent of the caregiver. So, with this being said, caregiving is not a short term obligation, and most of the time, caregivers do not even realize they have become a caregiver.
And I can definitely agree with what Casey just said. I have seen it with my clients as well, where, in the beginning, they were assisting, like it was minimum assistance. And then with time, as the disease progresses, the care receiver becomes more and more dependent. And then you start having anxiety about, can this person be home alone? Or are they going to leave the gas on this time? So it's something that progresses.
So, caregiving takes its toll. Being a caregiver can sometimes feel like a full time job. 4 in 10 caregivers consider their caregiving situation to be highly stressful. As I mentioned before, caregiving can become very overwhelming, especially when you have limited or no support at all. Caregivers tend to overlook their own well being and tend to have a higher than normal incidence of reporting sick. I have personally experienced this with my clients. I have had caregivers who have vented and expressed it to me that they are physically exhausted, and their health has declined because they're continuously putting themselves and their health last.
That I've also had caregivers who sometimes say that the care receiver is actually in better physical condition than
Mhm.
them themselves. So it's very common.
Also, these caregivers would also express to me, like Mudge says, um, I have an appointment coming up, but because mom is not doing so well right now, I can reschedule the appointment. But we're continuously in this loop where I can reschedule, and then ultimately you just end up never going to the doctor's office. And what I try to tell my caregivers all the time, even though you do have to focus on mom, it's very important to focus on your health. Some of my caregivers express they feel guilty for wanting a break, and I always try to remind them. Um, they do not need to feel guilty because they are doing the best that they can. How can they make sure their loved ones are okay when they're not taking care of their own health? Not taking care of yourself can be extremely harmful, but also to your loved one. It is extremely important to attend to yourself and your personal needs before your care receiver, because if you're not feeling well, something happens to you. Who's going to take care of your loved one? So I always like to remind my clients, even some of the smallest things can make a difference. Even if you have to read a book for 30 minutes and unwind, doing some yoga, drinking a cup of coffee, anything that's going to help you feel better. So, grim statistics for working caregivers. Working and caregiving can become very overwhelming and hard to balance. Half of all caregivers work mostly full time jobs, and about 11% end up having to quit their jobs to take care of someone at home around the clock. As I stated before, caregivers do not realize that they have become caregivers. They do not realize they become caregivers until the disease really begins to progress. And as the disease begins to progress, the more appointments you have to go to, the more of the needs of your care receiver you have to attend to. So it becomes, now after work, I have to run home to take care of my loved one, or I have to take days off to care for my loved one. So being a caregiver really does affect your overall stress and being feeling overwhelmed.
Okay, so luckily, there are programs like PSS who deliver programs like Circle of Care. Okay, so PSS offers several programs to older adults living in New York City. PSS Life U offers programs and events at our several locations and online. And our online component, this proved to be very effective in March, where due to COVID and the population that we work with, PSS was able to transition to offering many of our in-person programs online. Our coming of age program inspires people who are 50 and older to live with passion and purpose. We have 10 centers helping older adults stay engaged, healthy, and connected. And we also have a grandfather family apartment building, which is the first US residence purposely built for grandparents raising grandchildren. PSS Circle of Care. So, PSS Circle of Care offers assistance to caregivers caring for those who have memory loss, are frail, or chronically ill. And the way we do this are through referrals. Referrals could be through to long-term care Medicaid or supplemental services. We do educational training such as this one, Caregiving 101. We offer wellness activities, sometimes art. We do yoga, music events, joint enrichments, which I really enjoy because this is something that the caregiver and the care receiver can do together. We offer technology to prevent wandering, transportation, respite opportunities, and support groups. And our support groups right now are over the phone and virtual.
So, PSS Circle of Care philosophy. We will never charge you for services because we are funded by both state and city government. Our services are all free of charge. There's no catch or financial eligibility screening. Our approach is to build the capacity of the caregiver. We provide educational trainings and webinars to caregivers such as this one so that they can become better caregivers. We also have the approach to build the capacity of the community to support the caregivers. PSS Circle of Care has this initiative called DFC, Dementia Friendly Communities, which brings awareness and empower community members to embrace and support those with dementia. And lastly, we also build community capacity through Circle of Care stations located in communities in every borough. To continue on, how PSS Circle of Care helps caregivers. A family caregiver or referral partner will contact our toll-free hotline or email us. Then our intake department will contact you, the caregiver, and then you'll have a brief conversation about how PSS Circle of Care can be an assistance to you, how we can help you, how can we make your situation better. Once this initial contact is made, the intake department will then assign you to a care consultant. Once you are assigned your care consultant would then give you a call. There you would have more of an intimate conversation with your care consultant, explain everything that's going on with yourself, explain everything that's going on with the care receiver, and after this we're able to schedule an appointment to complete the assessment. The assessment is used to assess the needs of the caregiver and help us work together in order to establish a long-term plan of care. We
Oh,
also
I wanted to just mention that in the past, we were able to visit the caregiver and the care receiver in their homes or at a care station close in proximity to their home if that was more convenient for them. Right now, we are offering assessments over the phone and virtually.
So, like Madge mentioned, our care consultations take place in one of our circle of care stations. It could be a public location near the caregiver, for example. It could be a community center, a library, a coffee shop, a place of employment, or in the caregiver's home. But because of COVID, everything has turned virtually or over the phone. How PSS Circle of Care helps caregivers. Um, Continuing on, after the assessment is complete, uh, sorry, after the assessment is complete, several consultations will happen with a caregiver and their care consultants. Through the consultations, care consultants will provide caregivers with the information they need. They will link them to nearby support groups and provide any referral programs or services they may need. Care consultants also keep caregivers informed through follow up phone calls, emails, and monthly e newsletters. More of a breakdown of what PSS Circle of Care offers, like had mentioned before, we do provide individual and family consultations. We also do provide, we link caregivers to support groups. Support groups are a safe, comfortable, and confidential space where caregivers are allowed to share their experiences as caregivers with other caregivers. We also have wellness and joint enrichment activities such as this one. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. We do have evidence-based trainings and informational workshops like this one. If you look on the PSS website, in our events tab, we do have several different events and trainings always happening, in hopes of educating caregivers as much as possible. We do also have wellness events, which is basically allowing caregivers to practice self-care. And we do have joint enrichment activities where both caregiver and the care receiver participate and have fun together. We do have emergency and short term respite. We're allowing caregivers to have a break. This is short term and temporary, but overall, our goal with respite is to establish a long term plan of care for their loved ones. We do also have ongoing information and support through our Circle of Care e newsletter, webinars, and social media. So, do we have any questions?
Let's go to the chat box or Q&A.
Thank you, ladies, and I wanted to thank everybody again for joining us. If you have any question, please add it on the chat. I also wanted to mention our partnership with the Brooklyn Borough President for doing this sessions of Wellness Wednesday. Actually, the session will continue for the next month. It's to gather information for caregivers. It doesn't have to be only wellness like nutritional or any type of exercising, but information that can help the caregiver in their journeys of caregiving to make the information and resources available to them. Again, I want to thank you, ladies. And if you have any question, um, please add it on the chat. So there's a question, what is the phone number? So do you guys want to add it or? Somebody
So,
asked, what's the phone number for if somebody wants to reach out to the services? I believe that's what she's asking.
Okay, so in this next slide that I just put on, we have more information. If you know someone, as a caregiver or someone that is interested in services with PSS Circle of Care, here is our phone number and our email to contact us for services.
That's a good question. How can I get information to give out to the community? Well, right now we are doing our DFC initiative. So if you do have a community that you know is interested in raising awareness about dementia, um, you can reach out to me. Let me see if I can respond here with my email.
I can also add a good ways to also help us share the information to the community, because unfortunately now we cannot be out in person. Thank you, Aura. It's not we cannot be out in person with everybody, but the good thing is we offer a lot of information on our website, so it's good to share the information. So pssusa.org, if you go there, there's a lot of resources, past webinar, so activities that people can do while they stay in home, and I think it will be beneficial for the community.
So the question is, I live in NYC and I am a disabled distance caregiver to my frail, chronically ill parents in Westchester, hoping to move them to NYC in the long run. May I be eligible for help?
Yes. As long as the caregiver or the care receiver lives in New York City, you're eligible for our services.
Yes. As long as you are in any of the 5 boroughs, we can help you. Even if I've had instances where I had a caregiver that was living in the Bronx and his caregiver lived in Florida. So as long as the care receiver is here, then we're able to help you as much as we can.
There's one more question. There's another question. Andrea asks, how do I get a list of nutritionists for my mom?
So I do work with nutritionists. So I do have some referrals. I would look online. DIFTA always has a lot of information. The Department of Aging always has a lot of information. You could reach out to PSS to try to get a referral. Yeah, we do provide referrals. That is one of our services. And we do work closely with nutritionists.
I also noticed another question where it says, do you provide recommendations for companies that have aides for hire? So we do, like I mentioned, we do have different referrals that we work on. So once you connect to your care consultant, you really explain to them everything that's going on. And if you're interested in obtaining a home health aide for your loved one, that is something you can discuss with your care consultant, and that person will connect you to the right people for a referral to an aide or a company that provides aides. Essentially, there we're trying to help you establish that long-term plan of care.
I can't see the question, but how PSS works is we contract with different home health agencies. So we don't have the home health aides. We go through the agency, and then that's how you get the home health aide. There are no fees for any consultations. We are funded by the Department of Health and the Department of Aging. All of our services are free.
Matt, do you want to go over a little bit about the respite program? Because I think it will be great beneficial for people to know. Yes, we do work with the home aid agency, but if you're in the process to look for a long-term service, PSS can offer that temporary service to you. You want to go over that?
So our respite services are temporary and limited. So once I get a client, I always encourage them to know what their long-term plan is, because we don't want to put a Band-Aid on a permanent situation. This is something that's going to be long-term, and it's something that's progressive. And I always try to explain that to my caregivers. So when I say our respite is temporary and limited, that means we only have a limited amount of respite to give out. And we can run out. I don't know what's your experience, Casey, but I can run out in the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
So always encourage my caregivers to know, what's the long-term plan going to be? It could be long-term care Medicaid. It could be, if it's a spouse, that they're going to retire in a couple of months, so they'll be able to give that person their full attention. I've had some caregivers say, well, we're going to set something up with the family so that someone can always be with dad. So everyone's long-term plan is going to look different depending on what
their situation is like.
depending on what their situation is like. But we always encourage you to have a long-term care plan because the respite is temporary. So it's
Right.
not a service that I can guarantee every month.
Correct. And not everyone respite is the same. You know, respite is determined once the assessment is complete and once we assess your needs, then we go ahead and determine the amount of hours. So there's no set amount of hours we can provide to a client. That's why we always like to, you know, remind clients it is short term and then essentially it is a break for you, but we have to work on what is long term and what we're working for in the future.
I hope that
Thank-
answers the question.
Yes, thank you. I just usually want to emphasize on that because yes, we do offer the respite, and then people tends to just I'm gonna get the respite from PSS, but they're not really looking at the long term. Like you said, we don't want to put a band-aid of something that's not gonna help anything. So we want to make sure we clarify that. Yes, we do offer that service, but in the long way, we want to look into the long-term service that's gonna help the caregiver and better, right? Oh, thank you, Linda. We hope this information can help everybody and know there's a services around that can help you in your caregiving journey. And just the one thing I always say, you're already doing great as a caregiver. To just initiate to be the caregiver, it's a great thing. You're already doing good. So only thing we're here to is to support you and offer the services and place the resources for you. Any other questions?
I just wanted to say that someone asked me a question about a nutritionist. She can leave her email and I can give her a referral for that.
Think we do have somebody from the borough president office. If you want to say something, I can allow you to say something. Eileen, anybody, you can raise your hand and I can allow you to say something just quickly.
Oh, hi there, everyone. We're
Hi.
just so very happy that we're partnering with PSS Circle of Care for these upcoming workshops. And we're happy to have any and all residents of not just Brooklyn, but the whole city join in and get some really good information how we can all support the loved ones in our lives.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you again, everybody. If you have any additional question, you can reach out to me or you can reach out to our hotline, PSS 866-665-1713. I also wanted to mention that that number is a hotline, but it goes directly to our intake specialist. It's not a waiting time. So if you call, it will be answered right away. Anything, ladies, before we end the call today?
Just thank you for this opportunity and we look forward to these weekly presentations. Thank you, guys.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you. This was my first presentation, so I was a little nervous, but I thank
did
you
great.
guys for allowing me to be here and do this presentation with everyone. It was a really great experience, and I look forward to doing more.
Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. This presentation is being recorded. If you miss any part of it, you can go on our website, pssusa.org. And also please share the information to anybody that might need the information. We all can do our part. We can offer all this information, but we know with your help, we can reach out more people. Please share the information to everybody that you might know. Okay. Thank you, ladies, and have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye
you,
now.
everyone.
Bye-bye now.